go into our dungeon canning room that has mostly craft stuff, homeschool stuff, but there are some lovely cans of produce in here. And I'm looking for narrow lidded jars. And what I'm looking for are some that I put in here clean last season, and I'm carefully feeling the rim for any nicks or unevenness or cracks. If I do find some that have nicks or cracks, then I save them and I put a black Sharpie X on the bottom, and then these turn into our crafting jars, bug collecting jars, button jars, anything like that. So I'm going to collect 7 of these, and I have a drawer of rings that I saved from last year. Okay, we're going to fill our colander with nice ripe tomatoes, and you'll see that they have some dirt from the garden in them. So we're going to take this to the sink, wash them off, and cut any bad parts out and cut the tip stem end off. That will help the skin to slide right off of the tomato after it's been blanched. Any tomatoes that are really soggy, we're just going to throw away. Or compost if you have a compost bin. Okay, while I am taking the tops off of these, I'm putting the heads back into the colander and putting the cleaned up ones, deheaded ones, into the first bowl. Now while I'm doing this first bowl, I have the saucepan on the oven on high, getting ready to go to a boil, so that by the time I'm done with doing this colander load, it'll be ready and boiling. Okay, so our water is boiling and ready for tomatoes. So now we'll put a whole tray of ice cubes in the ice bath here. And when you put the tomatoes in the boiling water, it doesn't take very long at all, a minute or two. Okay, you're just going to gently make a layer of bobbing tomatoes. And what you're looking for is the skin to split or to wrinkle on the outside. And as they do, you're going to ladle them out directly into the ice bath. If you have help, like I have, you can have someone taking the stem ends off of the next batch, colander batch of tomatoes, getting those ready while you are doing this. As you're looking for peels that start to pull up and roll up like this, not wrap, roll up like this. And you're looking for cracked split sides like this one. See how that has split along the edge there? We're going to immediately put them in the ice bath. The cold, extreme temperature difference is going to help loosen the skin. It's also going to arrest any sort of enzyme activity in the tomato that helps to decompose it. You'll notice some of these have the sides cut off. Any of these that had some icky parts on the side, they got trimmed off. Once this batch is done and I have it in the ice bath, if I have another bowl of tomatoes ready, once the water returns to a boil, I will put the next batch in and repeat until I have all the tomatoes done. When my ice bath is full and I need to put more ice, if the ice is all melted, I'll put more ice in. And I'll carefully make sure it's not too hot, but you'll notice that tomato just pops right out of the skin. So I'm just going to put that to the side and put these in a bowl with some water. I have to add water to that just to hold those. Squirt them in, and you can get through this section really quickly. And it's actually kind of fun for the kids to do. Okay, out of 2 small baskets we have some nice big bowls of peeled tomatoes. We put out a clean multi-folded towel, and we have our canning bath, hot water bath, about 1/3 full. There's a line down below that we filled it to. I put the hottest tap water that our sink will do, and I have it low medium just to keep it starting to be warm but not too hot and boiling. And I have a big stock pot here that I fill halfway with water, and I'm going to bring it to a boil so I can sanitize my jars. If you have a dishwasher though, you can put them in the sanitized cycle. So as soon as that boils, we'll show you what we do with the lids and the rings and the jars. Okay, so I'm going to sanitize these jars. So I'm going to put them in very gently without burning myself and let them be in the water for a bit. Okay, after a few minutes I'm going to pull these out with long tongs, and I have the tongs where there is no water. I'm going to slowly lift this like this so I don't get burning water down the tongs to my hand. Just enough so I can grab the bottom and put this on the towel waiting for tomatoes. And I'm going to dip these in the boiling water for just a little bit to soften the wax. I'm not going to leave it in there so the wax doesn't melt because we need that, and it helps to sanitize these. I will set this over on the clean towel next to the jars waiting for tomatoes. So for each jar of tomatoes you're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon of citric acid, and then a teaspoon of non-iodized salt in each jar. This didn't work very well. Then I'm going to take very clean hands and I'm going to dice up my tomatoes until the curve of the jar. Obviously, if you're doing them whole, as whole tomatoes, you don't need to cut them up. You're going to want to make sure that there is enough fluid inside, liquid inside the jar if you're doing whole. As I'm doing this, these are releasing juices and adding juice to the jar. And as I go along, I'm going to be tapping the jar down gently to settle the tomatoes and see if I can get more in. These tomatoes look like a lot, but they compress down and they're not going to fill all 7 jars of the water bath. Get maybe a few more in there. Obviously my knife isn't that sharp. If you have a really sharp knife, just do it on a cutting board. I'm going to wipe this lip off so there's no gunk interfering with the seal. Put the lid on. And a ring, I'm not going to jam the ring on really hard, just enough to catch. And I'm going to bring it to the hot water bath and gently sit it. The half heated water. If there's any spaces left, I will use a dummy jar filled with water to fill up that empty space. Just a note that this jar here only is halfway full of tomatoes, so I filled the rest to the curve with warm, clean tap water, so it has the same density so it doesn't float. Okay, so all the jars are submerged. I have some headroom to allow for boil. And I'm going to cover it and put it on high. Once it reaches a boil, then I'll process for 40 minutes and we'll come back. Alright, so this is rolling boil. I turned it down to low-high, medium-high actually. And now we set our timer for 40 minutes. Okay, 40 minutes is up. We turned the oven off. We'll carefully uncover the lid. Use our tongs carefully set them out without jostling them very much. Set them gently. And leave space between them to cool off. And we'll wait for them to cool and give us that nice pop sound. It shows that they sealed. Now I got 5 jars out of this batch. The one jar you can see back there is half full. And now I can just gently tighten those rings a little bit. I'm not forcing them, I'm just letting them grab. And we'll let them cool. Okay, so we let these sit for a little bit, a couple hours, and they're still warm. We heard a lot of popping, and you can see the indent of this little hole there, this little indent on the lid. You tap it. This one's still curved upwards, and it has a different sound. That one did not seal, so I could put a new lid and the ring back on and reprocess this, see if it would seal, or I could just use this up, put it in the fridge and use it up.